Members of ACORS, a warm welcome to Experts in the Ether. This is another in our occasional series of conversations with ACORS members and other experts on subjects of relevance to the chartered accountant in the USA. Through this series, we hope to educate our members on critical accountancy and finance-related issues of the day, with an international flavour, to highlight some of our members in key areas and industries, and to draw upon the expertise of other experts across the accountancy world. Your interviewer today is yours truly, Mike Dexter Smith, and we are coming to you from the site of our AGM here at the New York Athletic Club. Enjoy the video. Ladies and gentlemen, a big welcome to you all. Our expert in the ether today is the President and CEO of the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy.
Correct.
This gentleman's name is Ken Bishop, and I just want to give him a big shout out, because this gentleman, probably not well known by all of our members, his name, but has done so much for our organization and so much for our members. So I thank you on behalf of our members. You and David have just been such great friends to all of us, and I thank you for it. So thank you for joining us. I know you've got a tight schedule today, but let me just ask you to tell us a little bit about what NASBA's mission is, because many of my members don't know much about NASBA, except that you provide the CPA exam and the like. But tell us about what the mission is and where you're taking the organization, because you've carried it a long way over the course of 3-4 years now?
Well, 5 years.
Is it been 5 years?
It's 5 years.
Oh my goodness. So tell us about the mission.
Sure. Well, there are two primary elements to NASBA's mission. The first is to enhance the effectiveness of state boards of accountancy. So we have 55 U.S. jurisdictions between the states and the territories, and NASBA provides resources, legal support, back office support, experts in different types of areas, so that state boards can do the best job that they can do with resources that we can help them supplant, like for smaller states where the bigger states may have adequate resources. The small states oftentimes need the support that NASBA can provide them. The second part is probably even more important, and that is that we are the common interest voice of the state boards of accountancy. In the United States, the state boards are the true accounting regulators of the CPA profession. It's impossible for every state to have a voice in Washington, internationally, with different stakeholder groups. So NASBA, as serving as a collective voice for the state boards of accountancy, is positioned well to really give them a strong voice, not only nationally, but internationally.
You've done a terrific job with the states. You've reached out to them extensively. Dan Dustin has led that charge for you. Still a few states to pull in, perhaps, over the course of time?
Well, I'm very pleased to say that we're kind of there. Our annual meeting last year was the first time in NASBA's history that had all 55 U.S. jurisdictions represented at that meeting. But more importantly than showing up for a meeting now, we have regular dialogue literally with every state and territory, even small like Mariana Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico. We have regular interaction with those groups. So we truly are a strong, common voice representative organization of all the regulation of accounting in the United States.
Yeah. And you actually also help them change their regulations as well? You've made some changes for them?
Well, what NASBA does is we work in partnership with the American Institute of CPAs, the AICPA, and we have what is called the UAA Committee. And essentially it was decided 30-40 years ago that the profession and the regulators had to work together to make sure that we had consistent laws and rules across the United States. So under the Uniform Accountancy Act, uniform being the key word, we now have almost every state and territory that has substantially equal rules and laws that made mobility and reciprocal licensure much more possible in the United States.
Right. You certainly worked on mobility and reciprocity across the states before you became president. How is that going now?
Well, it's going very well. We actually have 53 jurisdictions now that have mobility. We only have 2 islands, your home, Hawaii.
Hawaii, yes,
Hawaii
right.
is one of the states that has not yet adopted it. We have Mariana Islands, Mariana Islands are going to introduce their legislation this year. So so we will have everyone but Hawaii. So you need to help us in Hawaii. That would be very useful.
I should get over to Oahu, start beating the drum over there. I also noticed on the website that a few years ago you began doing these international evaluations of our basically of overseas accountants. So their evaluation of their what am I trying to say here? Of their education, of their educational requirements. I see now that you're actually providing services to 18 jurisdictions.
Actually, no. Actually, we're providing services to 53 U.S. territories and states.
Right.
Now, we have 18, where you're correct. We have 18 that use our services exclusively.
Okay,
so
that was
every
the
single candidate who applies to those 18 states has to use our service.
Right.
But in many of the other cases, the other states, a majority of their candidates use our services. We do expect to have all but one by the end of this year. So it's grown magnificently, and we're providing a whole new level of integrity into international evaluations.
I think it's really important for our members to understand that, because that means that we've really got one group that are looking consistently, because one of the issues has always been the inconsistency across states of evaluation of the education. But I think the members should realize that you've put in place now really a consistency of that evaluation process.
Yeah, the important thing too is that when NASBA typically takes on what we call a business line or one of the services that we provide, it's almost always at the request of a state board. For example, in this case, the state of Kansas, the executive director of Kansas was looking at the evaluations, and you're right, they were not consistent. They were seeing different levels of quality. They asked us to look into that, and we discovered that there were people that were approving Indian high school degrees as being a 5-year college degree because they didn't understand the jargon. So we hired the right people, put in a team, and then we went to our state boards and said, this is an expensive endeavor for NASBA. We hope you utilize it and use it. And as from the remarkable numbers that I gave you, almost every state is now using our services.
It's the one thing that I don't hear anything about anymore, about the inconsistency between states. And that's got to be as a result of what you're doing down at NASBA.
Well, it's not an inconsistency between states, just to be clear. It was an inconsistency of the people that provided that service. Some of these are for-profit entities who were charging candidates thousands of dollars to essentially give them almost a paper mill type of evaluation, and we've eliminated that. One of the things that NASBA has done that is sort of unique is that we have agreed to train our competitors. So if there is a corporation, for-profit, or another not-for-profit that is providing the service we provide, but doing it in a bad way, we have offered to train them, show them how we do it, so that we can protect the public. So we're a little unique that way.
That is very unique.
The public protection is the primary reason we do these things.
Good. But 53 now, so there's only 2 to go. It's not Hawaii again, is it?
It isn't.
I've got to say, can't blame you for that one as well. Obviously of interest to my members are the MRAs and where we stand with those. And we've got now the six institutes that comprise a course. We've had a lot of changes. You've seen what's gone on in Canada and the like. Let me just ask you a question. Do you think that Canadian model is going to be continued across the rest of the world?
Well, I don't know that it will, because Canada started out with a very unique situation where in Canada there were these distinct credentials that were competitive. They did not have a lot of commonality as far as agreements and things that worked on together. So I think that now the CPA Canada, the CMA, CGAs, all those people decided to work together to come under one umbrella in Canada. It was an amazing accomplishment of our friends in Canada.
Only Kevin could have done that.
But most of the world doesn't have that on the front end. So I don't know that anyone else is going to experience that. I think if there is a valuable lesson to come out of Canada, is not to let yourself get divided among a bunch of new credentials. Don't create what Canada just got rid of. And that is happening in the world. So I'm hoping Canada sets a model for the rest of the world of don't have to do what, you don't have to put yourself in a place where you have to come together. Don't be divided in the first place. And we see that in Europe. It's occurring in the UK and other places. So we believe there ought to be a conversations about the importance of one credential that is relied upon by the public for the purposes of audits and attests and the high-level accounting that is done around the world.
Around the world, not just in individual countries.
That's
this is
exactly
going to be
right.
around the world.
That's exactly right.
Right. Do you think the CPA could be that?
Well, I have no belief that the U.S. CPA should be the only credential in the world, but I think that the CPA in the United States can be one of the examples of a high-level credential that others might want to look at the systems that we have. We certainly look at CAs, we look at Canadian CPAs.
Yep.
We're always monitoring what other people on the planet do, and we see good ideas.
Yeah, right.
So I think getting the global standard up to a level that we can have more mobility, more reciprocal arrangements in the future, more trust of each other's credentials is a good thing, and I think we're headed that direction.
Good. No interview with you would, and all the thanks I can pour on you, but I'd also have to give a big shout out to Bill Treacy as well down at IQOB. He's led that charge for us down there as well, and it's been fantastic. Any news from IQOB on anything at this point in time?
Well, a lot is happening at IQOB, and let me say Bill Treacy is a personal friend of mine. He has been around IQOB. He chaired it for many years.
We should perhaps say what IQOB is.
IQOB is the International Qualification Appraisal Board. It's a joint venture between AICPA and NASBA. Bill Treacy is an immigrant himself, coming here from Ireland as a young man.
Is he really?
And it certainly, I think, inspires and motivates him to make sure that we have a sense of fairness when we do things with other countries. And he's done a great job as a volunteer. Like I said, he's a good friend. He's the executive director of the Texas Board of Accountancy, has been that for a long time, and we will certainly tell him of your good wishes.
He's just a terrific guy and has always helped our members out. Whenever we've asked for help, he's always there for us. Recently in November 2016, you wrote that the NASBA Board of Directors has okayed the unilateral pathway. A giant stride, in our opinion, forwards. And tell us about unilateral pathway and what it might mean down the road.
Yes, unilateral pathway is a procedure that didn't exist. Traditionally, all of the agreements that the United States had was with other countries that we had some type of reciprocal pathway for our CPAs to go to their country. In certain cases, and I'll use Germany as an example, Germany has a very onerous process to become what is essentially a chartered or certified type of accountant in Germany. And to get to that end, it's a very onerous experience requirement, education requirement. And we never push back about a company setting the bar as high as they want to set their bar. And so they certainly set it. But there's a very low likelihood that many U.S. CPAs either have the desire or the ability to get to, because of the language barriers and other things, a German credential.
Right.
However, a lot of Germans accountants come to the United States, and there is a desire in the U.S. profession to have them acclimated and part of the U.S. network. So that would require a new type of agreement. That's what unilateral is, where Germany can come here with no expectation that U.S. CPA has a reciprocal pathway going back to Germany.
You know, is this going to, do you think, replace MRAs? And we perhaps should say MRA is a mutual recognition agreement, which you have on your website if my members want to go look at it.
I don't think it will replace MRAs that exist, and I don't think it should replace MRAs that could exist. Right. One of the things that we're talking about right now is the fact that mutual recognition agreements have, the urban myth has been, number one, that they were equal, both directions, but more importantly, that they had to be equal. The fact is that if two entities agree to do things in a reciprocal way, I'll give you an example. If we're neighbors and I agree to mow your yard and you agree to babysit for my children, it's a mutual agreement, but we're not doing the same things. Right. And so we can have agreements that are complex agreements with other countries that clearly and intuitively spell out the pathway for accountants go in two directions, but they may be different. And we believe those are better than unilateral. So right now, working with the United Kingdom, for example, our discussions have changed from unilateral, which we have passed, it will be available, to let's first try to get to mutual recognition agreements that are intuitive, clear for the accountants on both sides of the pond to understand, but more importantly, that identify the gaps and the reason that we can't have a smoother transition, and let's try to resolve them over a period of years.
Yep, yeah. How far are we along with the MRA with England and Wales and Scotland and South Africa? They're my three groups of members that.
Michael, you know I have this rule that I always talk about. I don't like to write checks you can't cash.
I know.
But you also know that I'm an optimist, and I also don't like taking no or we can't do it as an answer. I believe we're very close to getting to a good place, first with ICAS, with Scotland, because we work closely with Anton and that organization, with the Institute. But we've also met with ICAW, we've met obviously with Ireland, we've had a traditional MRA, we've met with the FRC, the regulator in England. And we have a goal that we set for ourselves to have the first agreements by the end of this year.
Oh,
terrific.
So
we have put down a benchmark that says we don't want to talk about this anymore.
No, it's good.
We want to do the level of due diligence that you have to do, but we want to get to a good end. And I think that, frankly, I think Brexit has given us an opportunity to have a dialogue with the UK that didn't exist before Brexit.
Right.
And I think that we will get to a good licensing end, and I believe it's going to get there rather quickly.
You raised Brexit. I mean, you see it from the outside. How do you respond to it?
Well, I have disagreed with a lot of my friends in the UK early on this because I actually believed that Brexit was a good thing. And I tend to be a conservative. I have 49% British DNA, so maybe I have a little,
it's from way back. Where's the 51 from?
Well, it's a mix, 14% Irish, 20% Eastern European, and a little bit of Turkish. That's where the nose comes from, Turkish. I think, maybe, is those genes.
That's good.
But the fact is that if you look back in history, and I'm a lover of history, I'm educated in history, in fact in British history, there was a very strong business nexus and relationship between the United States and England that kind of got put to the back burner when the UK joined the European Union. And I'm not talking bad about the European Union, but it changed the business relationship and it changed the sort of the relationship paradigm that we had together. So I think both culturally and through historic reasons, we have a natural ability to work very closely with the UK. And I think that was sort of forgotten for a while, and I think post-Brexit has given us a new opportunity to revisit that opportunity, and I think we're going to make good headway because of it.
Yeah. You say yourself you've been 5 years at the helm now. Your greatest success?
Well, my greatest success does not have to do with international. When I became CEO, I recognized that there were a lot of state boards that didn't really feel strongly related to NASBA, their umbrella organization. And so I created what I call Back to Your Roots. And essentially, I wanted to make sure that before we looked outside of our own house, let's clean up our own house. And so my greatest success is the fact that every single board did come to the last annual meeting, that we are having a great relationship with all of our state boards, and we're seeing more and more volunteers on our committees, involvement. I'm a happy person when I get a phone call from a state board that says we need something from NASBA, because that's why we exist, and we're getting those calls every day.
Good for you.
That's my greatest success.
And where were you just in the terms of thinking back 5 years? I mean, how many jurisdictions came in 5 years ago? I mean,
well, a good meeting was 30-32.
30-32.
And so, and it was very often that I would talk to a state, and there was almost, and this is not an exaggeration, there was almost an anger between them and NASBA at the time because of probably some things we did that weren't very smart. So I give a lot of credit to Dan Dustin when I hired him as a senior vice president in charge of maintaining that relationship with state boards. So we have an executive whose job is not to go out there and sell ideas or products or law. It is to go out and make sure we're doing what we do and we're doing it correctly, and that has really changed for us.
Yeah, that's just terrific. Raising the profile of NASBA, sometimes it's a sort of little unknown what it is, where it is. Have you spent time with that?
I have. I use a word called relevancy.
Yeah.
And what that means is for us to be effective in representing state boards as their common interest voice is people have to know who NASBA is.
Right.
And you know that 5 years ago, most people didn't know who NASBA was outside of the United States. Canada certainly did, Mexico did, but others did not. And in the United States, we're sort of unique because we have the American Institute of CPAs, and in the rest of the world, the institutes are the regulator,
right?
And they're the ones that issue the credential. With the United States, AICPA doesn't regulate, nor do they give, or nor can they take away the credential. No. Only the state boards of accountancy can do that. So what we've learned is that we have developed a relationship with AICPA that says we're better served if the world knows that we are two entities and how we work together. Yep. And we're working and we're struggling sometimes to make sure that people understand that in the United States, the only person that can give, take away, or regulates the accounting professions in the United States is the state boards of accountancy, and again, their common voice being NASBA.
Yeah, and you've really taken that voice to another level. I mean, not only have you've stirred the groups out there, but you've become the voice, really. I mean, Ken Bishop now is in many ways the voice. I actually read your magazine on a regular basis.
Well, you know, I can tell you the way I'm wired is I don't really want to be the voice. I don't mind being the face.
The face then maybe is the better word.
Because one of the reasons NASBA did get in trouble with some states is that we had a few loud voices in small circles that thought they spoke for all state boards. My job is to reach out, hear, understand consensus and positions, and then be the face of NASBA in a lot of organizations. But the name, the NASBA, the state boards are the important message that I need to get out there.
Anything unfinished at this point? Lots of things unfinished, I'm sure.
There's so much unfinished. I mean, we are looking at, when we talk about a changing world, education is changing. The type of experience that CPAs and chartered accountants around the world are getting. We used to think about accountants as dealing only with numbers. Now then there's sustainability, there's IT audits, there's AT 101s, there's SOC audits, there's all these things that the public relies on the CPA and accounting professions to do here and abroad. That have really changed the type of people that are becoming accountants. They may never see a number as far as adding up columns of numbers in their career. So it's a changed paradigm, and we need to make sure that the regulators in NASBA is up to speed with the new way accounting is going to look in the future.
Do you see a trend out there? You mentioned sustainability, something you're focused on?
Well, we're just focusing on the quality of people who do the attesting. So if someone is relying on a sustainability audit, then who did that? Were they regulated? Were they trained? Did they do it correctly? Were they conflicted in any way? Did they do things in an ethical way? That's what regulators do. That can also apply to AT or to IT. If you're putting your personal information into a system, or if you're taking your companies and putting it into a cloud-based system, who has looked at that system, and are the people that looked at it, are they a for-profit doing things for the wrong reasons, or are they a regulated profession who's going in and doing the ticking and tying traditionally done in numbers to make sure the IT environment is safe?
Does cyber crime keep you up at night?
Cyber crime, which I think it all should be criminal, does. If there's one thing that keeps me awake at night, it's my own personal data that we house. We house the personal identification of hundreds of thousands of people who are licensed, taking the CPA exam, and we are the world's repository of that information. So we spend millions to make sure the integrity and the quality of that system, but it's still probably the most likely exposure in any business or enterprise in the world right now is that someone, if they decide to get into your system, can probably get in. We have thousands of attempts to hack our system on a daily basis.
How many thousands?
Some days hundreds, good days hundreds, bad days multiple thousands.
Tens of thousands, I'm sure, trying to get in there and see what's going on. Ken, thank you as always for your insight. It's been fantastic. again, thank you for everything you do for my members. As I say, many of them won't know your name, but that's probably okay as well with you. But this is Mr. Ken Bishop, and he's been a great sponsor, members of ACORS, great sponsor of ACORS, but also chartered accountants here in the United States.
I do want to say, Michael, it's a two-way street. We enjoy our relationship with ACORS.
Thank you.
We think that it's formidable. We think that we have made a lot of success, or had a lot of success, and made a lot of accomplishments because of our relationship, that trusted relationship. So I appreciate the invitation. I do hope your members do get to know who NASBA is, and I look forward to meeting many of them in the future.
And can they all come and see you down in Nashville, and we'll take you down to the
You have to
bars?
buy a pair of boots and eat barbecue, but then you're welcome to come.
That's terrific, sir. Thank you so very, very much. And that's it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.